Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Cup of Joy. I'm your host, Ariana Joy Christie, and I am so glad that you are here. This is a space to inspire, to learn, to grow, and to challenge. Get ready to fill your cup and spread a little joy along the way. Okay, Judy Greenfeld, a lifelong entrepreneur, published author, ordained rabbi, and inclusive spiritual guide. Welcome to Your Cup of Joy.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
I'm so happy that you're joining us. And you are such a well-rounded person. When I read your title, I was like, just my mind was buzzing. So I'm very, very excited that you're here. And I want to start by maybe asking you to share a little bit about your journey of entrepreneurship and kind of just a little background of who you are.
Yeah, I think I always had the bug of wanting to do something different and kind of cutting edge because even in my early 20s and 30s, I was always coming up with different ideas and following them through. For example, I mean it's crazy, but I was a personal trainer to the stars, that kind of world, because
Huh.
I have a degree in dance, and I actually thought that's was going to be my path. But in that, I was always very spiritual, probably because it's a physical experience to dance and to be in that, I don't know, frame of mind and art and all of that. And I also come from a tragedy. When I was 16, my father was murdered. And not to like have you go, oh, and go off on that, because that's a whole different thing. But I think sometimes tragedy opens up an entire, I don't know, it opens up an entire wavelength, I think, of questions of why me and why do bad things happen. And
Mhm.
I went on a lifelong spiritual journey at the same time, which led
Mhm.
me to Native American dreaming so that I could understand what happens when we sleep and that world uh,
Mhm.
and artistry. And I also get so excited to learn new things. And I think I never thought of myself as an entrepreneur, but I love creating. I love creating.
Oh.
And so um, a second part of my life started to come together and be created when I realized that my personal training, career was only finite. There was more. And what I was
Mm.
finding is that people, no matter what their bodies looked like, they could not see themselves until there was a spiritual change. So
Mm.
there was really a psychic change of acceptance and love. And I also realized that in working with people, if they had an injury somewhere in their body and we started to strengthen the area, they would remember, their body would
Mm.
remember um,
Yeah.
the injury. And that's something we had to go through. And then they'd come to the other side. And so then the progression of, getting better physically and then psychologically will lead you to spirit. And that's
Mm.
for myself what happened too, as I, worked through the trauma and I also um, experienced the physical healing that you get too from bringing the two together. I saw that something spiritual was happening. And I found that really exciting. And I didn't know that it was in my faith. I didn't know that it was in Judaism because to me, Judaism was very patriarchal, very
Mm.
much, very dogmatic because I grew up conservative as a conservative Jew. And I never saw anything spiritual in that, not
Mm.
about dreaming or astrology or numerology, all
Yeah.
things that were not the answer, but they were great information.
Mm.
And so when I went back to look at my own faith, because there was a point in my life where I said, well, who am I? Like, what am I meant to do on this planet?
Yeah.
And in order to do that, you have to go back first inside to what you were born into, because
Mm.
that's really the truth of who you are, because you had no control over it.
Yeah.
So in doing that, I realized, okay, I was born into this family, I was born into this life, and I'm Jewish, and I need to find out if that works for me, because if it doesn't, then I need to make change. And as I dove into the spiritual part of Judaism, which at that time was kind of taboo 25 years ago, um, you really weren't allowed to study Kabbalah. The patriarchy did not want you well, did not want people to take Kabbalah lightly. And you can see what happened with Madonna and that whole Kabbalistic world.
Mm.
Um, it could be used to as like spiritual materialism, and that was the fear.
Okay.
However, as I studied it, everything else became very clear to me. I don't know why, probably because I had expanded into more of that spiritual place.
Yeah.
And I went back to study what I thought was the boring stuff, the stuff that I didn't have patience for as a kid. And
Hmm.
I found, guess what? There is astrology in Judaism. There is numerology. It's called gematria. It's a
Huh.
way to look at the Bible because some people think that the Bible is a code, just like a computer's a code. It's fascinating. And
Very.
I had the opportunity to find out that in the history there were really ancient, such an ancient religion, and the women were very potent but very hidden. And so in my lifetime, the women pushed through and we've become leaders. And not that it's either or, but it needs to be combined.
Hmm.
And that's what I've also been a part of. At first, it was kind of like a rift. And now it's really this combination because the feminine is very, very needed everywhere, not just in Judaism, in all religions and in all spirituality.
Hmm.
So I decided I wanted to go back to school. And there was no school in Los Angeles at the time. And then one appeared. And so I was one of the first knocking on the door because I love to sing. I never thought of myself as a rabbi. And so I was one of the first students and went through 4 years of training um, in liturgical music and fascinating, fascinating things about the music of the temple.
Hmm.
And then I founded a synagogue in Los Angeles called the Nachshon Minyan. Nachshon is the one of the contemporaries of Moses. He was he was in the group of the slaves that left Egypt, and he was afraid of water. And that's what the Midrash says, the teachings. And when they came up to the Red Sea, and behind them was the Pharaoh coming to kill them, he started to walk into the water. And when God saw him walk in the water, boom, he split the sea because he saw
Hmm.
us meeting, he or she saw us meeting him or her halfway. And so I named this congregation Nachshon because it took a leap of faith to start it.
Ah, that's beautiful.
And years after, about 10 years after, I just decided to go back to, I asked if I could become a rabbi as well. I didn't know there was such a thing. And my school is pretty contemporary. And they said, yes, come. You're in one of the first classes. And so I said, I have to do this slowly because I have a congregation. So about 7 years later, I finished my thesis and in 2016 became an ordained rabbi as well. So
Wow.
I'm not, I didn't get online and get a ministry license. I wanted the real thing. I'm so glad because I love to study and I still
That's
study
amazing.
all the time. But I think that again, that's the creativity. That's breaking the boundaries,
Hmm.
thinking outside the box. That to me gives me life.
I love that. That's so beautiful. And you share also, thank you for that background kind of how you got into the field and became an ordained rabbi. And um, you also share in your bio that I was reading that you are a mom for over 35 years. You have experience of being a mom. And I'm a mom of three, but I don't have that many years of experience. I have twins
Oh,
that are three and a
oh
half.
my.
And
Wow.
yeah, and my daughter is two. So it's a little bit wild in my home. And I'm also back to work now. And that can be such a struggle and something that I feel like sometimes, you don't want to complain. It's hard to talk about because it is a blessing, yes, but it is very, very difficult. So as a mom of 35 years of experience, can you just give me some hope?
Well,
Kidding, kidding, kidding.
that's,
Not
no,
hope,
no, no.
but
I know
like
what
maybe share a
you
bit of how you
experience.
navigate. Yeah. How do you navigate a career and all the complexities that come with a career and being a parent or a mom?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you don't have one bag under your eyes, so you must get good sleep. You're gorgeous.
Thank you.
Um, you know, that's a really good question because I was probably at the end of. the generations that didn't stay home, and we
Mm,
were conditioned to work. We did
yeah.
not want to be like our mothers, because I'm the youngest of five, and my older sisters were content to be home and to just be a
Mm,
mom. And I have to
okay.
tell you, there's a lot of guilt that comes with it. So get ready.
Mhm.
um, you never feel like you do enough. I
Yeah.
have two incredible children, and they've been through a lot. It wasn't easy. I didn't have the ones that slept at night. I was up many nights in their room holding their hand while they were sleeping in their crib. Um,
Oh, yeah.
and I did exactly what you're doing. I found the downtime, and that downtime fed me. Um,
Mm,
I didn't watch TV. I read, and I wanted to grow while they were growing. And
mm.
I wasn't a helicopter mom, and I thought I was supposed to be, but I couldn't go to all the mommy things because in the beginning I tried and I just didn't fit in.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to say to you, Ariane, is trust your heart and trust your soul, because in a way, this is your pulpit.
Mm,
And people need to hear you, because I think the most under served community are moms. You, more than anything, need my sound baths. You need to be reassured that you're the best mom. I had a spiritual teacher who would always start the conversations, "You are such a great mom." And of course, you don't believe anyone who tells you that. When they say you're bad, mom, sure. But you
it's true.
need to hear that daily, because being a
Yeah.
mom is, there's no guidebook. And I threw
None.
that out because they, it was so frustrating, because no one, the moms that would tell you that they knew everything, don't believe a word they say, because that's not you.
Mhm.
I went through therapy when I had my children. I would try to teach them, it's important for me to grow when I'm with you. I don't just wait for you in the parking lot. And not that I also want to say too, there's nothing wrong. And I admire the women who make that choice.
Agreed.
They
Yeah.
want to just be a mom because they have really good reasons for it, and they're great. And I wasn't one of them, because I saw my mother do that and then become, a dynamo.
Mm,
I feel that I don't want to put any judgment on those moms. At the time, there was this feeling of people looking down on me. Oh, she works. Oh, she's dressed up for work. Those kinds of things. Or,
mhm.
oh, she's in her leotards to go to work, and I felt
Yeah.
judged.
Mhm.
But I want to say that no matter what you do, you never think you do the right thing, you know?
It's so true. It almost feels like a losing battle. Like on the days that I spend more time with the kids, I feel like a really, really good mom. But then I look at my house and it's a mess. And on the days that I'm doing really great at work, I'm like, yes, I'm killing it in my career. And then I look and I'm like, oh, shoot, like maybe I missed gymnastics tonight or I didn't make it to swimming lessons. Like you're always in your head and feeling guilty. And I actually just had a conversation with someone this past week. I was just talking about random things and and I guess I didn't even realize, but I kept saying like, "Oh, it's my fault." Like, "Oh, I asked for it though." Like, "Oh, I did this." And this person was like, "You got to stop saying that." And I was like, "What do you mean?" I didn't even realize. And I think it's the narrative that I tell myself in my head, and why I don't realize is because it's constantly in my head that, well, it's my fault. Or like, "Oh, I did something."
Always.
And that's such a difficult thing to come around. And like you said, like the mom guilt is so epic. Like it's always in there no matter what. Like if my kid gets sick, I'm like, "Oh, I didn't wash their hands enough." Like as if it's my fault again and you feel guilty. Or if they're sad or having a hard day, like I feel guilty that maybe I didn't spend enough time with them that weekend one on one or something like that. The self blame and the guilt is so very wild. So, how do you handle that? The feelings of guilt or even the feelings of blame, maybe that come with parenting, especially during tough times?
I had, my daughter was hard, and every day I'd get a call from the school, and I felt like someone put a drain right in my heart. It was like,
Yeah.
and she had issues, and I was blamed for it. There is jealousy. So, as much as you're going to accept guilt and blame, you must accept, which I realized, jealousy and just meanness. Okay.
Yeah.
That is just inherent in our culture for people who
Mm,
are succeeding. And there is an old stigma that you're breaking. And every time you don't give that energy, I want you to think of the fact that you're breaking it. So that when that guilt comes in, you just say no. Not allowed. You don't even have to go like psychologically unpack it and all that. Don't bother. It's like,
Yeah.
no. Literally, somebody said this to me. I loved it. She said, when you let guilt or blame or shame or regret come in, or I should have, she
Yeah.
said, it's like you have a little kid that wants to run into the street and you have to grab your little kid and pull her back on the sidewalk because those things will never, ever help you grow.
Hmm.
They will destroy you. And it's a training. Like I literally had to train when those thoughts would come in because I don't know, maybe Jewish moms feel that they feel guilty and they put it on their children. Maybe Catholic moms do that too. It's just a horrible thing to live with. And if you're doing things out of guilt, your kids can feel it, right? And if people are calling you because they feel guilty, how awful is that? You want them to
Truly.
really love and want to be with you. And even
Yeah.
today, my kids are in their 30s, mid to mid 30s, and I will not guilt them into, I try really hard because maybe because it was done to me.
Yeah.
I just feel that I want them to freely want to be with me and not because they're afraid that I'm going to be mad or it's just an awful thing in our world that we have that. Um, I think it's wonderful that in your mind also you care. You know, the
Mm.
guilt on the other side of the guilt is that you care
That's true.
and that you want to be a good mom. And I would pray, hey, God, like prayer is a vehicle. Hey,
Yeah.
higher energy, higher power, source of all being, whatever you want to say, help me to find a way to divide my time so that I can learn what it is to be enough for everyone.
Hmm.
Because no one, what is enough? Like I would feel like I spent the whole day, a whole week, and then one day I'm off and I'm feeling like awful. So I just feel
Yeah.
that you need to hear a tape every day tell you how fabulous you are. Plus, you have twins. I mean, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I like what you said though about like telling yourself and knowing, like when you said you are a good mom, I can vividly remember a time when I felt like I was in the weeds. I had a newborn. The twins were very young still, like they were 18 months when Callie was
Um,
born. And I took them to the library because I thought, I shouldn't make them stay at home because I'm tired. Like, let's go and do something. And we went to the library and I was reading a book with one and the other wanted something and they were pulling on my leg. And then Callie was breastfeeding because she was a newborn and needed to eat. And after the chaos had kind of subsided, I think my husband had come and was with one of the kids and I was sitting with the other. A lady at the library looked over at me and she said, "I just want to say, you're a really good mom."
oh,
And I felt like I was doing terrible. Like I was like, "We're at the library, we should be quiet. Like everybody just calm down." And I was feeling flustered and I will always remember exactly what she looked like, exactly her clothes, exactly where we were because that moment is ingrained in my head forever and she probably didn't remember the next day that she had said that, but those words are so impactful. And so I think I'm really big into affirmations right now,
oh,
with my kids. And it's funny because I don't practice it myself, but you are inspiring me to do that because those things are true. And a lot of the negative self talk that I give myself when I'm feeling guilty or feeling like I'm blaming myself, I would never say that to anybody else.
oh,
Like I would never look at a friend or even a stranger and say like you're doing a really crappy job or like why are you doing that or you look like crap or whatever it is. I would never. But for some reason we're so like used to saying those words to ourselves.
oh, absolutely. And the self-talk is huge.
Huge.
And many times, it still comes up. And I have to truly say that when I pray, that voice is quiet and that I begin to cultivate. And
Mhm.
literally, you're planting seeds, you're cultivating. You got to water it every day.
Yeah.
That positivity. You also can use the positivity of saying, "Hey, I've never done this before. I'm learning." That was one of the greatest things that another spiritual teacher of mine said. "Hey, I never did this before. Like I just moved to
Mhm.
Texas 3 months ago, and I I'm the senior rabbi of a congregation, and it's can be overwhelming at times. And I think to myself, hey, I might have been a rabbi for 25 years, but not here in Texas and not with this group. I'm learning. And when it becomes learning, Ariana, it's very different, you know. And those days that you feel like you're the worst, learn from them. Say,
Mm.
I don't want to repeat that. How can I replay this scenario? And just by the way, sometimes you're just going to blow it. And you have to
Yeah.
really love yourself when you're the worst parent and everybody sees that. You're screaming and just
Yeah.
losing it because you will.
Yeah.
None of us are perfect.
That's so
End of
true.
the day, inside of that place, inside of Ariana, that roots down, that is, it's to me, it's my tree. It's like I just root down. There's goodness and
Mm.
there's love, and it's you on the best day. That's who you have to remember you are.
Hmm. I love that. I also feel that through being a mom, I learn more than I teach my kids. I always say that. I've always believed that. They have taught me so much, especially about myself, good or bad.
Uh-huh.
So, my question for you is, what is maybe one lesson that your children have taught you about yourself?
So I have two children. My oldest, Samantha, she's an artist, an amazing
Mm.
artist. And what she taught me is who artists are.
Ah.
And she also taught me to step out of the norm. I wanted to be normal so bad. I wanted to be
Mm.
just like everybody else, honestly. Maybe because I was a dancer, maybe because I always felt like the odd guy out. And she has taught me no, like that's the best part of you, and
Ah.
break the mold. And so she's amazing. That's what she's taught me, that everything I thought is not necessarily so.
That's
Uh,
amazing.
and then my son is who has inspired me as literally taught me what an entrepreneur is. Always was one. I just never called myself that.
Ah.
And that's who he is. And so he has taught me what that is, to really use that creativity in a business sense, because I was never a business person.
Mm.
And I used to also have a negative tape running around that, oh, you just are a rabbi or a dancer or whatever, someone who never dealt with money, and that's just not true. I'm really
Mm.
good at it. I've had to be, going through divorce, having
Mhm.
been challenged, and then having businesses, literally businesses. So, children teach you everything that you need to know in this lifetime. They really do. And through
Mhm.
them, I've been able to be a better rabbi.
Aw. That's amazing. I
Hmm.
love that so much. We've also said, obviously, a lot through this episode already that life can be difficult sometimes and challenges arise and are often present. So, for parents who are navigating their own personal struggles, whatever they may be, what kind of wisdom can you share with them about staying present and also connected with their children?
I'm just having this flash when my son was little.
Mm.
I'd be working, and he go, I want you to watch me eat. Like he was maybe 3. Watch me eat, mom. And I'm like,
Aw.
to eat? Oh my God. And he turned my face, and I realized and I put my phone down, and I realized the power in that,
Mm.
because it's being seen. And those moments where you really see, that word into me, see, intimacy is not, no one's going to sit there and give you a check mark. No band is going to fly in. But those
Yeah.
moments that seem so boring and mundane, wow, he taught me something so important that day. And
Mhm.
something as simple as watching your child, you don't even know how important it is. And if you miss the game, I wasn't a mom that went to all the games either. And
Yeah.
remember, you're a co-parent. Somebody else can help you too. Uh,
Yeah.
but
That's a good lesson, actually.
but there's always a way to amend whatever you felt you didn't do as a mom. You get, I have 33, 36, now 34, 37. Guess what? Every day I try to be a better mom still.
That's awesome. Yeah. I guess it never really ends, which is something beautiful too in itself. So,
And they
Oh,
never
thanks for sharing.
remember the way you remember, by the way. They, you
Of
know,
course. Of course, because it's a different like you can have the same experience and it's different. Like everybody's lived experiences are different. You take different pieces from it, I think. And yeah, I think as parents we just want to give our kids the best experiences that we can and for them to feel loved. And like you said, seen, like something so simple and easy. It's so easy to get kind of wrapped up in, oh, everybody's doing this activity and everybody put their kids in this thing and I should do that. But I think really, like, I'm learning, especially in this year, is that the simple things mean the most and are remembered the most.
where do you live, Ariana?
I'm in Canada, in Ontario.
I love Canada. I used to go
Yeah,
there
yeah,
every summer. Yeah. Such a
it is awesome. Yeah, we really like it here. Although now the weather is quite,
cold.
yeah, chilly and rainy. It's yucky. But I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about mental health because I think that goes along with parenting too. When I became a mom, like I thought it was going to be the most magical experience. It would be so wonderful. I'd be surrounded by all the people that I love the most and I would feel so connected. Um, and ironically, it was the loneliest that I have ever felt in my entire life. I struggled a lot. Um, and then when I was struggling with like anxiety and depression and all of those intense emotions and feelings of loneliness came through again. And I know you are an advocate for mental health. Um, and I'm just wondering, what do you think are maybe the biggest challenges that people face when they're trying to overcome the feelings of isolation and loneliness, whether it's in parenthood or entrepreneurship or just life in general?
Well, first of all, you're awesome that you're talking about it because nobody ever talked about it. And I remember literally feeling lonely to the bone, to the
Mm,
bone. It was painful how lonely I felt.
yeah.
I also thought, oh, mommy and me and all these things. But all moms are kind of isolating. It's weird, or their kids are on a different time or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that's disappointing, A. And you're in Canada, and there's even more community in Canada than I would think is in Los Angeles because it's very transient.
Mm,
Um, you're not alone. You really aren't. And I'm not sure if other moms talk about it. If I could have done it again, and I was in a therapy group, by the way, I did find a group, but they weren't young moms, they were older. And so I derived a lot of comfort knowing, what their experience had been. But I needed to talk to friends who felt the same way. And, or maybe I needed a combination, but you must talk about it. And you can't fill the loneliness with anything except paying attention to it. And then I realized that loneliness is really like a door. Loneliness, it verges a little bit. It's got the same it feel of boredom. Like you're afraid you're going to be
mm,
bored. I don't know if this makes sense, but you don't do things because you're afraid it'll be boring or you'll feel lonely, whatever. And the whole thing that helped me through the loneliness is to sink into it, um, and talk to it. Like,
mm,
why do you feel alone? You have you. And I think it's the moment where you start to realize, and I know this is kind of an ethereal thing that I'm saying to you, but everyone is lonely and it hits them at different points. But I felt it so much when I was a mom. And it is going inward and really being there for yourself and trusting yourself. And it's also a practice. It's a practice like meditation, meeting yourself and realizing that you're there.
mm,
Whether it's God, whether it feels like not an imaginary friend, but I remember doing a lot of meditating where I would be walking down trails and I would be in a forest or whatever, and there'd be a gift for me. And I gave myself the gift that I needed at that time that was waiting for me. Meditation was a very big thing, music, but you need guides. You need people to help you go there. And you must. It's something that's daily for you because you haven't met yourself yet. Um, you're not alone. You have to, that's a cycle to break. And
mhm,
but I've been there and I certainly know it and it does pass. That's the one thing I can
mhm.
tell you. Your children aren't going to feel that.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think it's a difficult thing because you can be surrounded by people but still feel lonely, and I think that was the biggest realization for me in those early postpartum years or months even, were just yeah, like people were there. I had support, I guess, but I just didn't feel that connection. And I think it's hard too because I realized, like in my experience, and of course everybody's experience is different, but I needed to put myself out there in order to find that community and support.
Oh yeah.
And so, I really feel for people. I have lots of followers who messaged me at that time when I would talk about, creating your village and finding the people who you want to be around. And lots of people messaged me saying, like, that's a privilege in itself. Like, not everybody has family nearby or friends nearby, or maybe they don't know anybody. They've moved to a new country or a new place. And I think changing the narrative around to say, like, it doesn't have to be a traditional community of people. It doesn't have to be friends and family. I really looked at my midwife as part of my support system, or my doula, or the person that I saw on my walk every day that I would just wave to and not feel so alone because they were part of my routine every day. Like, there are ways to feel connected, that are not just calling a friend for coffee.
Well, and you're even creating that by having this podcast.
Hmm.
The podcast never existed probably before. That's what you're creating now. And online has, not that it's the only thing, but that there's more of a chance that you can find other people who are going through what you're going through. And see, that's a
Hmm.
great quality of yours. I would have isolated, I would have been too
Hmm.
embarrassed to say I felt that way. And I had to
Yeah.
break through that because I felt embarrassed. What can I tell you? I didn't want people to know that I was lonely. But the fact that
Yeah.
what you're saying, and it can be somebody who's older, it can be somebody that you just
Mhm.
met. It's better if it isn't family, because you have to expand from family. So yes, you're a survivor. That was a survival skill that you knew to do. That's you meeting yourself.
Hmm.
That was you. The you inside said, Ariana, you're going to do a podcast and you're going to reach out to other women who might feel the way you do. Ariana, you are going to say hello to that person because it takes you maybe for 5 seconds out of your loneliness. We
Mhm.
miss ourselves. We miss seeing all the ways that we have survived. And you only see it in hindsight, I think, sometimes. But if there's anybody out there going through that, Ariana, you're a great source. I'm a source too. And it doesn't
Mhm.
have to be, sometimes religious organizations don't work for people and they actually turn you off. I had a group of dreaming women, that was a little weird, but we knew each other from the dream. It was really cool if I look back. But other
Yeah.
people in my life went, what are you doing with those people? Did you join a cult? So, you have to trust yourself a lot.
Mhm.
Mental health. It's very, very common. All When you've had children, you had twins, you are depleted.
Mhm.
Many
Yeah.
women, go through like small bouts of mental illness, and it's very common, and they don't talk about it, and they have trauma because of it. And for myself, honestly, I used to be really against pharmaceuticals or anything like that. And I went, and I'm not promoting this for anyone, but it changed my life and helped me
Oh,
because I was feeling, I didn't produce enough serotonin. Who knew? There was such a stigma. And
huge. Yeah.
all the voices in my head were gone. And I
Mhm.
could think clearly. And so don't be so quick to judge. It could help you and you may decide no, but you'll make the decision. It's very um, jarring. You change your whole life when you have children,
Mm.
when you move, and that's what I mean. It's important for you to do all of it to help yourself because you deserve it. You know, that's all.
Totally. Yeah. And I think it's hard. Like, I grew up being like, well, if you have a cold, like, you suck it up and you keep going. So, like, if you don't feel like yourself, or you feel, a little off, just shut down those voices in your head and just move forward. And it's like, I think because that was ingrained in me, because you were successful or you were good or what you were, all these great things if you powered through, that I never really reflected to be like, no, this actually is not good. Like, no, I shouldn't feel happy that I made it through another day. Like, I should focus on healing myself so that I feel good about it, not bad about it. Like, it's this weird switch of changing, like, our mental space to even be able to comprehend what we're going through and to work through it instead of just pushing it to the side. And like you're saying too, like, I think there is such a stigma around medication. And I don't claim to be someone that knows everything. I can only share from my own experiences. But I remember talking to a girlfriend saying, like, um, I don't want to have to take a medication because I don't want to like not feel like myself. I'm scared that I will be someone else. I won't feel like myself. And she said to me, well, what you're struggling with and the feelings that you're having now, is that feeling like yourself? Like, do you feel good now? And I was like, no, like, you're right. Like, switching that narrative in your head to say, like, it's such a stigma, but that really did fix that kind of thought for me, I think, where she just said, like, if you're not feeling normal now, then what's the harm? Maybe you will feel a little better. So, yeah, I think they're all things that we need to destigmatize and know that it's okay to be soft. We don't have to be so hard all the time.
And you don't have to tell everybody either, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
If someone goes, "How are you so hip, slick, and cool?" They don't need to know. Um,
Yeah.
but it's interesting to hear that it's still such a stigma, um,
Yeah.
because I kept quiet for so many years until I saw other people suffering, and I was willing to talk to them about it. Um, and in the aftermath, and again, that's a feeling of being lonely,
Mhm.
because you are. I'm a truth teller, and I think that you create relationships by sharing and telling the truth. We have to find good practitioners, because I also try to do everything naturally. So I would look for every natural way to do A, B, and C.
Mm.
It doesn't always work. I mean, I'm really I have both.
Yeah.
And as I age, because I'm not as young as I used to be, I'm also very open to hormones and to new things that people have found. And I want to just feel good. It's not a question of being perfect and beautiful and all that, which of course we should be. We should be. We
Mhm.
should be our most beautiful selves and our most, that's who we embody. And yet, I'm very open to whichever side of the medicine is going to work. And
Yeah.
so I want to say that
Agreed.
too. I was really against um, Western medicine, and that's not helpful either.
Yeah, I think being open to anything that can help is good, and just searching for things that make you feel good. And speaking about things that make you feel good, I want to talk a little bit about self-care because it's kind of the reason why I started this podcast is I lost myself really, like, in motherhood. I didn't do things that I used to do for fun. I stopped playing guitar. I stopped playing soccer. I didn't go to the gym. I didn't feel good because I lost all my hobbies. If somebody asked me, Ariana, what do you like to do? I don't know, wash bottles. Like, I was just I had totally lost myself. And so it really became a topic of conversation in my life and something that was at the forefront of my mind. And so uh, it was the reason why I called this podcast Your Cup of Joy, because I really wanted to debunk the myth that self care is selfish and really showcase that taking care of yourself helps you become the best version of yourself in all aspects of your life. And it allows you to give more. Like, we have this thing where, we feel guilty because we think we're being selfish. But if we switch that to really say, no, I'm filling my cup so that then I can fill others, it's just so powerful and so impactful. So, Judy, my question for you is, what do you do to fill your cup?
Well, first of all, I love that you're a fellow guitar player, because I am too. And if you don't practice, you can't really play well. So there are
True.
periods of my life that I just focused on it. And when I when I minister, or when I'm out there as a cantor, I loved the guitar. I think that it's a thing that makes people feel comfortable and warm.
Hmm.
Two things that you said. One is that you kind of give up yourself. You're washing bottles, you're taking care of your house, you want to be a great mom.
Hmm.
I also had, my ex-husband didn't believe in getting a nanny. Like, that was like oh, who gets a nanny? Whatever. And so
Yeah.
that's what I thought. But if you can get help, and I don't care if you're working and you're to pay that person to come in to take the kids for a couple hours, do it,
Hmm.
because don't be a martyr, because you need your own time. As much time as you give to the kids, you have to find that time to fill up. And I also have a congregation now. And one of the first things to get in balance was, how many hours am I working? And on those
Yeah.
days off, I make sure to get acupuncture and massage and whatever it is, and do my spiritual work and call my spiritual teachers because they're not here in LA, and play my sound bowls, and all of those things have to have to be on the other side of it. Otherwise, useless. That's the
Yeah.
first thing, just like you said. And I love that the second thing is, because that was a real hard thing for me to do, is to get somebody to come into my home and help me.
It's hard to release the control of it, but you're right. And one thing that I want to note too, two things is that one, a girlfriend said to me once, there's no reward for going it alone. Nobody's going to give you a medal at the end of the day and say, like, good job, you didn't ask for help. That's not a thing. So, yes, like release the guilt of asking for help. And secondly, for people, like sometimes when we say a nanny, it becomes inaccessible to people. Maybe they don't have the finances to get help. Maybe they don't know where to start to find somebody that they trust. Something that I've seen people do lately is support each other. So, like, you have a friend who maybe has kids either in the same stage of life or different, like swap. One of you takes the kids and cooks dinner one night so that person can work or go to their appointments. And then the next day, the opposite. Like send the kids to the other house. And not only is it beneficial for you as a parent, but I think it's so special for kids because now they're creating other relationships outside of their family too.
Well, you're talking about that village idea,
Yes.
right? That's really lovely. And I don't mean to be like a negative person at all, but
Mhm.
I felt, this could have been my own craziness, but I felt guilty asking people for help. And so
Yeah.
it was, and I just felt like at some point, I'd rather ask an outside person
Yes.
than somebody I know. And I'm also terrible at hiring. Like I get really, I don't know how to hire somebody. And yet, if you can get help to do that, even if it's an hour, don't talk yourself out of it. You need the
Yeah.
time. So that, I mean, that's a wonderful idea, and do create that village if you can. LA was a hard place to
Agree.
do that. Very hard
Yeah.
place. Um, Secondly, what I love is that you're talking about joy. Um, and joy, it's so funny. The Jewish holidays just ended. And one of the commandments, like you're actually commanded during Sukkot, which is this time where you stay in this kind of like makeshift hut. After all that work, you're supposed to be back in nature and get your feet in the dirt and look up at God and not have materialistic things around you. And you're commanded to feel joy. Well, when somebody would say to me, "You're commanded," I would like go, "Are you kidding?" Like I would do the opposite, right? Don't
Literally
command
me.
anything. So what I tell my congregants is, it's a strong suggestion. Don't have to do it, but it's a good thing. But how do you cultivate joy? And because, it's like going to Disneyland and going, "Oh, it's the happiest place on earth," and your kids are crying. It's just,
Yeah.
what is real joy? And what it's taught me is it's not about being happy, right?
Mm.
Happy is fleeting,
Mhm.
but joy is earthy, and it has all these little tentacles of gratitude for like for your bounty. Like look at you, it's going through a list of all that you're receiving, my
Mhm.
children and my family, and I have a home, and it's gratitude. And it's like a big pile of gratitude, and then giving and receiving, and it's so much bigger than happy.
Yeah.
And so when you say your cup of joy, it's nourishing.
Mm.
It's like you want to give people nourishment in every cell of their body to know they're good and they're doing enough and they're exactly where they're supposed to be.
Mhm.
Even when you were going through your struggles, it's made you a better person. It sensitized you. It was suffering. And I'm not saying we all have to go through suffering at all, but if you are, and if you do, it's not going to last forever, just like fun times don't last forever.
It's
But
true.
you have an opportunity to grow. And
Mm.
just like, I don't know, I always think of this like a little seed. It's hard. It's like, it looks like a stone, but it has to bust through that layer of hard layer, and it knows when it's ready to sprout, and all the other things might sprout, but it has its own timing. And
Mm.
sometimes it's just a stalk and it has to be its stalkness. It doesn't know
Yeah.
that it's going to be a flower. And even that flower, it's like it's all it's part of a flow.
Mm.
And true living is what I'm learning. And I don't do it perfect all the time. Um, but I keep my eye on the lighthouse. It's like um, I just think of every year when I start my year, it's like just find your direction.
Mm.
And I might not know the things that are going to happen. Like, sure, I might want to take a great trip, or I might want to have more fun in my life, and those things are on there. But I look at the direction, and the direction is I want to build myself instead of destroy myself.
Hmm.
That simple. Is this
Yeah.
building me or is this breaking me down? And even if it's breaking me down, can I rebuild after this?
Hmm.
They're bigger goals. And that light is reminding you that you're on the right track and that think about a ship. I mean, lighthouses actually created a whole new life for sailors, like they were in the dark.
Yeah.
And so you have a lighthouse. Some people call it their North Star. I don't know. I
Mm.
love that lighthouse image. I don't even know if I've ever seen a lighthouse, but the world gets really stormy.
Yeah.
Um, I'll finish by telling you this one little thing because I know our time is almost up. I don't want you to think that, life is all roses and all that. And recently, my son, last year around this time, was diagnosed with cancer, testicular
Mm.
cancer, which is, if anyone, encounters that, it's very, if you're going to get a cancer, it's not the best one to get because there is so much out there. There's so much hope and it's curable. But I lost my faith. Like I have to say, it was just last year, and I just thought, you know what, God, I'm done. Like this is enough. Please,
Yeah.
this one, I can't do.
Hmm.
I can't live my life without this child. I mean, I don't want, I don't want this to be true. Couldn't even say the word. And I want to be honest with you. I'm 65 years old. I thought maybe I'm just done. And I didn't have this congregation or even the thought of moving to Texas. And I just went into, you want to talk about mental illness and all that. I was like, I'm not going to recover from this. So it's not like I upped my meds or anything like that or got new medication. But what happened after a few days is I decided inside of my being, I have to have faith. And it's the last house on the block because I don't know what else to do. It's like
Hmm.
I walked around my condo. I was like, I didn't know where to go to feel comfortable. I remember going to synagogue and I'm looking in the prayer book going, there's no prayer here for me. None of the
Yeah.
prayers are working here. I can't say a generic prayer. These are not good enough. And so I started to write prayers for him. And
Mm.
we said them every morning before his chemo. And I just put one foot in front of the other. And I made a decision, which, just like you said, you make this little decision in yourself. And I just said, I have to have faith because this is my path. This is my
Yeah.
lighthouse. And I don't know how else to survive. And when I
Yeah.
tell you that it was the last house on the block, I think you know what I mean.
Hmm.
It's like, I don't want to go there. I don't want to have faith. I'm pissed. And slowly, one foot in front of the other. And that's so much of what life is. I didn't know if I'd feel faith again. I was like ready to hang it up. And then things in my life started to move again. And this job came up, and I'm here with my partner. My boyfriend is here. It's weird to have a boyfriend at 65 years old, but
Nice.
and I'm in Texas of all places. I'm seeing them next week. But that's life's going to throw you punches like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and the adapting and figuring out kind of how to make it through is so difficult. Like I can't even imagine. I'm so sorry about your son's
he's fine
diagnosis. And
now. He's fine, and he just
oh
got
my gosh.
engaged and all of those wonderful things. But
Oh, good.
I didn't want to tell anybody. I don't want to talk
Yeah.
about it. But it's important because everybody's going to go through things like that.
Yeah. And I think my question for you then too, especially on the topic of self-care is in a hardship like that and going through something so very difficult, kind of like you said, losing your faith and just struggling. Um How do you continue to take care of yourself too in order to make it through?
Well, one of the things is you have to talk to people about it, even if it's
Mm.
just Like there's beautiful there's a beautiful Jewish story that comes with this about just looking in the abyss and going, it, yeah, yeah, life is hard. Life sucks sometimes.
Yeah,
Um,
acknowledging that I think is important.
it's huge. It's unbelievable how powerful that is.
Mhm.
And I want you to know, as you age, my self-care changes.
Hmm.
I used to depend on, I loved movement. I loved to dance. I loved to, bike. I'm very, very physical. Well, I have a problem with my knees right now. I can't do it.
Hmm.
So I have to adapt to new things. Like I had got an electric bike and I can be
Oh,
outside
cool.
and it's beautiful. And I like to plant. And if you aren't playing your guitar or those are self-care. And this is such a
Mhm.
silly little thing, but do it. I wanted birds. Like there's beautiful birds here and I want
Ah,
a bird feeder. They haven't come yet. But just getting that was
yeah.
so life-giving. So that's part of my self-care, along with I'm a big believer in acupuncture, meditation, yoga, kundalini, especially because of breath. I sing. Those are the things that I do to take care of myself. And I
Mm.
literally do my 15-minute ritual. It's like I say I can do anything for 15 minutes because even self-care can become burdensome.
Yeah, totally.
And so when I do 15 minutes, I write it down so that at the end of the day, and this is for mothers too, I know I accomplished something.
Hmm.
Um,
I love that.
so those are
That's
little
amazing.
things, yeah, that you can also do.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I love it. Thank you for sharing with us. And Judy, to end, I usually do some rapid fire, just fun little questions. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Are you a morning person or a night owl?
A morning person.
Oh, that's very good for the birds. Maybe they'll come soon. Summer, winter, spring, or fall?
I'm loving fall. For the first time, I'm
Oh,
getting fall, and Texas
the
is
best.
beautiful. Yeah.
Stunning. Yeah. Favorite movie?
This is such a funny thing. I love, and I'm forgetting the name of it now, Starman. Um,
Mm,
Starman's a really old movie, but it is the greatest. It's one of my favorites.
amazing. And dream travel destination?
Africa. I'm ready
Oh,
to see the animals in Africa. I
the best.
I
That's where I
from Bali and Peru last year and Egypt, and now I'm
oh,
for Africa.
amazing. My husband and I honeymooned in Africa and it was the best.
Oh,
Yeah. So beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Judy, and for
beautiful.
sharing with all of us. Where can people find you and connect with you?
Yes, you can find me on my Instagram and on Facebook and even TikTok. It is
Ah,
Rabbi Cantor Judy G or Rabbi Judy G. There's a few different names that you can find me under. My
perfect.
website is www.rabbicantorjudy.org. And I'm also at Congregation Beth Israel in Colleyville. If any of you are out here, come and pray with me. And I hope to hear from you. And just I hope that I've helped one person today.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Your Cup of Joy. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as I did. And if this episode resonated with you, or if you've been loving this show, I'd really appreciate it if you could take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you are listening. Your support helps the podcast grow, it helps it reach more people, and it means the absolute world to me. So keep filling your cup with joy, and I will see you next week.